Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Hope you guys are all having a nice holiday season. And if you're wondering why I'm chuckling, it's because of this overwhelming sense of deja vu that I'm feeling right now. It's still a few days before the next iteration of the Matrix, the next Matrix movie comes out, but I feel like I'm living a little bit of the Matrix right now. So Rocky and I were recording this Spawn Miss Day 5, and we had a little technical difficulty in the first recording, and we had to kind of split it and then do the second half of the first recording, and then we went back, and the first half had disappeared. So
And it's all my fault.
it's technology, it happens. So apologies if it seems a little disjointed in the middle. So we're going to redo the first 10 pages of Spawn issue number 5. And if you're wondering, well, what the hell are you talking about? Spawn issue 5. It's the 12 days of Spawn, Miss, right? That's what we're doing. We're celebrating Spawn. We're celebrating the renaissance of Spawn. Go back and listen to the first 4 episodes, fully break it down, what we're doing here. But basically, 12 days leading up to Christmas, 12 days of the comic source. We're covering the first 12 issues of Spawn. In the new year, we will release daily one issue of Spawn a day in with the end goal being let's read all 300 issues of Spawn, 320 issues of Spawn, and get caught to the current stuff that's coming out with Gunslinger Spawn and Scorched and King Spawn and that sort of thing. So we're up to issue 5. We're having a lot of fun reliving these books. Now, I wasn't a big fan of this one when it first came out. Still not a fan of it. I just think there are some technical issues with the pacing of this particular issue. Rocky, on the other hand, has a different take, right? Take us
Yeah,
down memory lane, Rocky.
I like this issue because it deals with a serial killer by the name of Billy Kincaid, and it just brings back memories of I scream, you scream, who else scream for ice cream. It is tropey. It is vigilante justice. It's Spawn at his most hardcore. It's Batman on steroids. I mean, it's just going. It's just this is the stuff that I just remember very viscerally being. This is what got me into Spawn in the first place. My fascination with Spawn only lasted 12 issues, and then I sort of lost interest in Spawn. But I got to tell you, I this really captivated me, this issue, and this is basically a one shot, and you really get a sense that if you want to know what Spawn's about and what he's capable of doing and what differentiates him from Batman, this was the issue that removed all doubt. This was Spawn. Al Simmons had his own way of dealing with with the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, really, the first 4 issues are more of kind of you think of it as a kind of setup, like establishing who Al Simmons is, the terrible deal he made with Malabulgia, who the Violator is, kind of his antagonistic stepbrother, if you will, what Al Simmons lost in terms of a chance to be happy with his wife that he loved so much he's willing to give up his soul for her, a daughter that he could never have. So yeah, in a lot of ways, the first 4 issues are set up, and then this one, something happens, namely Billy Kincaid gets out of the mental institution he's in, and that's what gets Al Simmons off the sideline. But the other thing that continues, like we've seen in the first 4 issues, is just a massive amount of dialogue. And you see it right there on the page if you're watching this on YouTube. How many redacted boxes I had to put on while this doctor basically expositions his way through explaining to us who Billy Kincaid is. He's this child murderer. He was suspected of murdering many, many children. They could only pin one on him. And at this hearing where the doctor is saying, basically what happened was your lawyer found some technical loophole that got your sentence reduced down from 22 years to 10 years. And now with time off for good behavior and what have you, it reduces it further to 8, means you're getting out tomorrow. Sam and Twitch are there. And we learned Sam Burke's name, I think, for the first time, Detective Sam Burke, and how much of a kind of a straight shooter he is. And he's kind of beside himself and pissed off that this sicko in his mind is getting out. He's like, man, we only nailed him for one murder, but we knew he was responsible for so many more. And then we even get a little insight into the mind of Billy Kincaid when we see, like Rocky was saying, you scream, I scream, we all scream for ice cream. That's how he lured his kids. He would drive around this ice cream truck, and he's talks about how he's doing everything he needs to do to get out as soon as he can, doing what they tell him. And Sam and Twitch, like I said, they're beside themselves. Sam talks about how he can sum up his whole career as an NYPD detective with the 3 words "by the book," but going by the book when it results in this kind of thing really makes him sick to his stomach. So the other thing that we have in this issue is the return of the 3 talking heads. We see the reporter from CNN, we see the reporter from E Entertainment, and we see the other guy, the right-wing guy who's now on Channel 99, apparently. I think he was on 44 last time we saw him. So he definitely moves around a lot. And in their exposition, we learn a lot more about kind of the case of this girl who died. She was the son of a senator who, the senator was caught in a re-election year having an affair with somebody named Marla Fleet. His name was Senator Jennings. This Marla Fleet was a former Miss Universe, and apparently the senator's wife, Senator Jennings' wife, was very beloved because it played out in the tabloids and everybody was against the senator and mad at him. So when his daughter was killed, the intimation is that the powers that be were told not to investigate the case as maybe as strongly as they could have. And it was all to kind of get revenge on the senator for him having this affair and basically being a dick, which that's just horrible in terms of justice for this poor little girl who died. So I mean, I don't care what the senator did. His daughter Amanda Jennings deserved justice, and I mean, at least they did find Billy Kincaid guilty, even if he did only get 22 years rather than the death penalty or life in prison. But then, yeah, when this sleazy lawyer of his gets that reduced down further to only 10 years and then he's out in 8, that's definitely a travesty of justice. And I find myself, for one of the few times in Spawn, agreeing with the kind of the right-wing media commentator here where he says, well, we got to look on the bright side. Kincaid's out. Like, think of it as him being safe and hidden away from us for the last 8 years. Well, now he's out. And so somebody can take revenge. He's like, Mr. Shadowhawk, are you listening? Somebody needs to break this guy's back. So a little shout out from McFarlane to his fellow image creators and their creation. So yeah, no subtlety. McFarlane starts off by, painting Billy Kincaid in a horrible light. He is a horrible person. And we got Sam and Twitch there just to kind of drive that point home, because they very much are sort of these POV characters in terms of morality. That the way Sam and Twitch, that they're kind of in a lot of ways the most righteous, the best, the most good characters in the book. So if Sam and Twitch feel a certain way, you can kind of rest assured that that's how you should feel. Like they're very much kind of characters who are on the side of right. And so if they're against Billy Kincaid and everything we learn about Billy Kincaid, he's a horrible person, and no subtlety whatsoever.
Yeah, and they're good partners too. I mean, they support each other. You can tell they got good rapport. You know that they're good cops because later on in the issue, there's some bad cops that drive through a back alley and run over some bums, and but they're good cops, and they're going to go and they're going to stake out. They want to keep an eye on Billy Kincaid, and they. More than once, they repeatedly reference the horrible things that Billy Kincaid did, how horrible he was. And that's Todd McFarlane again, the writing side of him, ramming it home to the reader. Despite the fact that he's conveying it in his art, he's making sure the reader knows just how bad Billy Kincaid is through the memories and recollections of detectives Sam and Twitch as they recall how bad Billy Kincaid is. And so, again, no subtlety, but, great to read in this ultimately this tale of blood and gore and revenge that are ultimately it will be revealed that Al Simmons had an opportunity to take out Billy Kincaid at one time and lost the opportunity to do so because the police got to him first. So part of this is some redemption for Al Simmons himself for failing to take out Billy Kincaid in the first place. So the story gets better.
Yeah, but again, no subtlety, because we go right from the 3 talking heads to a scene in Queens at the house of Wanda Blake, Simmons' ex-wife. There's his daughter sleeping in a crib. we've got a Cerebus doll, we've got a Felix the Cat doll. So some shout outs to some other creators by McFarlane,
Yeah.
but it sort of rams home the point that wait, are we gonna like Billy Kincaid's a bad guy? Could he possibly take out Wanda's daughter? Like that thought, you can't help but think when it goes from talking about how horrible this guy is, child killer, to immediately showing a young child, and from there we transition to Spawn and find out that he's sleeping in the alleys with homeless people, basically. But before we find out about that, we do see a scene like that Rocky mentioned about Sam and Twitch deciding, even though they got kind of raked over the coals by their superiors for going to that hearing at the hospital because they're supposed to leave Billy Kincaid alone. They're not supposed to be, trying to exact a pound of flesh. Everything's been done by the book. They decide they're going to take it upon themselves on their own time when they're not working to keep an eye on Billy Kincaid. Because they're worried about what he might do. He's such a horrible person. And sure enough, 2 days later, somehow no one's keeping an eye on Billy Kincaid. Maybe because Sam and Twitch don't have the resources of the NYPD behind them. They're not able to locate him as quickly as they should. But I still think he would have like a parole officer or somebody keeping an eye on this guy. But yet 2 days after he gets out of being in this mental hospital for having horrifically cut up this little girl into tiny pieces where it took 6 experts to identify her, he's already got his hands on an ice cream truck, tricks a little girl into coming with him, and wastes no time on the very next page. Same page actually, he's finger painting. And I don't mean he's painting with his fingers. I mean, he has cut the fingers off this little girl and he's creating a painting with them. It's absolutely horrific. I
He's a
mean, it's
sick
just
puppy.
awful.
Yeah.
And McFarlane, again, this is like, he'd never get away with something like this at DC or Marvel. So maybe it's a little bit of, the creator having the freedom to do whatever he wants as a creator-owned book. But man, it's pretty horrific. And I remember reading it for the first time and just being like, whoa, like this isn't Spider-Man. this is a hardcore book, and McFarlane's cutting loose, and then it transitions further, and again, you guys will listen to the second half that we actually have in the can already. But anything to add about this first half, Rocky?
Uh, I mean, I hate Billy Kincaid reading this first half. He's a bastard, and and I'm supposed to hate him. Everyone's supposed to hate him, and the system is broken. The system is broken. The law, everything is broken, and Spawn's going to clean it up. Al Simmons is going to right the wrongs, and we'll get into the second half to to get into more detail.
Yeah, again, everybody, apologize for the technical difficulties, but we'll stitch it all together, and you'll have a good laugh, and you'll get the whole story, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, little technical difficulties there, everybody. Not sure exactly where it cut off, but what I wanted to point out was, yeah, like I was saying, it seems like somebody should have been keeping track of this guy. I'm not necessarily saying it was Sam and Twitch because, yeah, maybe, I mean, even though they should have, he's got to register where he lives. He's got to have a parole officer. Like he shouldn't have been able to do, get an ice cream truck and already be out there killing a kid. Like, granted, Sam and Twitch are trying to do it on the down low, so maybe they couldn't use the NYPD resources or what have you. But yeah, I mean, for him to just be able to go right out and murder another kid is horrific. So then, like we said, with no subtlety whatsoever, just like last time, we went straight from Billy Kincaid to the house where Blake and or Wanda Blake and her daughter live. Now we go straight from seeing Billy Kincaid finger painting right to Wanda picking up her kid from school, um, for no other reason than to see that Spawn is there torturing himself by spying on his ex-wife and daughter that could have been his. And then we get another really strange transition. And this is another reason why this issue it's tough for me. Like, we meet a bunch of homeless people, right? And we're sort of told, well, this is what Spawn has come to, right? This is bottom of the barrel for Al Simmons. He's spying on his ex-wife, looking at the daughter that possibly could have been his, and living with some homeless people as they drink and tell bad jokes and try to stay warm. I mean, and he spends a lot of dialogue like explaining this, and then all of a sudden we go from them hanging around by the fire to this police car barreling through where these homeless people are sleeping on their way to a robbery, complaining about all the homeless sleeping in the alleys and blah blah blah. And they apparently run over one of the homeless guys who was sleeping under some cardboard, and they're all
Yeah.
mad like, oh, we told Joey not to sleep under the cardboard, sleep under the boxes. You couldn't tell Joey nothing. And one of the guys gets all fired up. This ain't got nothing to do with Joey. It's all the cops' fault. Protect and serve. That's a bunch of crap. They protected me from squat. Look, they even let this baby killer out, Billy Kincaid. Like the whole point of homeless people, guy getting run over by the cops, which is horrible in its own right. The cops bad mouthing the homeless. Also, this homeless guy is going to rail over the fact that Billy Kincaid got freed at a reduced sentence. Like, I'm sorry, just don't get me wrong. I'm sure that homeless people have concerns about the world at large, but to have a homeless guy get this freaked out over Billy Kincaid being really like it just doesn't have much of a ring of truth. And there's not being subtle, and then there's going to a ludicrous level, and that's a
Yeah.
little bit what this feels like. Like
Yeah.
like why did he have to have a homeless guy get run over and killed just to get this other guy fired up to complain about Billy Kincaid? And then of course now we find out that Al Simmons Spawns has a link to Billy Kincaid from earlier. We did mention the girl that was killed was a senator's daughter. He actually hired Al Simmons at one point because Al Simmons was black bag. And even though Al Simmons is this incredible agent, black bag kind of guy, the NYPD somehow gets to Billy Kincaid first before Al Simmons can kill him and gets arrested. And, again, they only prove that one murder, but they did find an abandoned shack in North Virginia where the remains of multiple bodies were found of kids mutilated and so messed up they never could get a final body count. And the shack was proven to belong to Billy Kincaid, but apparently somebody up on high, in order to punish the senator, made all that evidence disappear.
Yeah.
And even Jason Wynn, Al Simmons' boss, told him to drop it, and he did. Like, again, this is horrible stuff. Like, this is just awful. Like, and if we're supposed to believe that Al Simmons was a good guy, like even back then, you don't let this kind of thing drop. But it seems a little bit in poor taste to me from McFarlane to say, man, this guy killed all these people, and who are these politicians that are just like, well, yeah, I know all these kids are dead. 20-something kids went missing in the town that Billy Kincaid lived in, but we want to make this guy look bad, so we're going to cover all that up. Like, even certain political parties now that are kind of scum of the earth, in my mind, I don't even think they would do this. Like, this just seems like a bridge too far to me. I don't know. What do you think, Rocky? You think it has any sort of ring of truth to it?
Uh, uh, well, I mean, I can tell you, I think it has a little bit of ring of truth to it. There's always travesties of justice, obviously, in the real world when it comes to technicalities and stuff. I sort of chuckled, at the beginning where, his Billy Kincaid's lawyer references some obscure 1930 case to get
Yeah.
his client off. It's like every lawyer's dream is to like find that one case that's going to revolutionize and upset the law and like shock people and get a bad guy off. It's like it was ridiculous, but I mean, it's possible. What I find incredible about this is that this issue spends so much time building up how bad Billy Kincaid is, how bad the system is broken, because it's the only reason Billy Kincaid can get away with it, murdering 20 kids uh, uh, horribly, and six experts are needed to identify even one, and they can only convict him for one case, and he gets sentenced to 22 years, and then there's another technicality, and then it gets reduced to 10 years. And the only reason this travesty is happening is because society is falling apart. Everything's broken: the political system, the legal system, everything is broken. And of course, this is the world that Al Simmons has awoke in, and Al Simmons himself had the opportunity to take out this Billy Kincaid back in the day when the senator Paul Jennings asked him to kill this Billy Kincaid, and he never did it. So that's how it's all tied in. And so all this build up until we get to the end, and the ending feels so abrupt, which, I mean, you haven't got to yet, but we'll get to it. But for all this buildup, there was a surprisingly abrupt and quick ending regarding the fate of Billy Kincaid. And that's what was sort of shocking to me, is that what was really funny here, we talk about the lack of subtlety. There is we talked about how McFarlane is so good at rendering things artistically, but there's a page here at the beginning where it shows Billy Kincaid's eyes. The top of the page shows Billy Kincaid's eyes, and you could tell by the eyes that he's a serial killer, and he's mean and he's cruel. And in the narration, as you said, there's so much exposition. The exposition actually says, Sam actually says, "Look at those eyes." Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
just look at those eyes
yeah, look
and
at
tell
those
me
eyes.
that man's cured.
Yeah, I mean, McFarlane is literally telling the reader what to do and what to look at. And you don't have to do that when you're an amazing artist. And he's a really good artist there. I mean, Billy Kincaid's eyes pop off the page. We don't need to be told to look at his eyes to know he's a serial killer. You've done an amazing job drawing it. You don't have to spell it out for us in the exposition, but he does. And so it's kind of funny. We said before how that sort of like takes away, in a way, it almost takes away from it. It's redundant when you if you show something so spectacularly with your art, it is kind of redundant to explain it in the narration, and that's something you don't see many more skilled writers nowadays doing. But as you said, it was sort of McFarlane in his earlier days.
Yeah, and the other thing is, we're giving him a bad time about, like DNA wasn't as big of a thing back then. It kind of started in the mid '90s and whatnot. Um, so, like the O.J. Simpson trial was the first one that, really talked about it a lot and kind of brought it into social consciousness and stuff. So yeah, there's all that. But man, maybe I'm not cynical enough, as cynical as I've gotten about politics, that to think that most of the time you draw the line at kids, right? Like that's where it really gets me. It's like, man, I can't believe these politicians would let him. Maybe if he killed 20 adults, whatever. But when it's 20 kids, but yeah, they let it all go. And so ultimately, we're told that this is what gets Al Simmons off the sidelines, right? Like he's met Malabolgia. He's trying to make the decision at the end of last issue because Malabolgia spelled it out for him. Like, okay, here's your choice, Al. I screwed you. You got a raw deal. Tough luck. You can either use your powers to try to stop evil from happening, which will then bring your second death sooner and give me your soul sooner, or you can choose not to do anything and just let evil run its course, in which case I still win because then there's going to be more evil happening in the world, and that's good for me, and you'll still eventually die. So your only choice is how fast you give up your soul. But because Al Simmons has a personal stake in this, because he was involved, at one point trying to take Billy Kincaid out, when he finds out he's around, again, he decides to get off the sidelines and get involved. And we're told by McFarlane, a new purpose has been given to the helter-skelter life of Spawn. This former mercenary has a blemish on his record. He means to clean it up. And when that happens, it's a splash page. And we see, not for the first time, but I think for the first time in such an obvious way, that McFarlane draws Spawn with this magical cape that can become huge at whatever. I think it's back up a few more pages when he's jumping off the roof. If you're watching, keep going. Yeah, right there. That cape is so gigantic. It would wrap around Spawn about, I don't know, 8 or 9 times. He certainly couldn't walk anywhere in it. And that's one of the things that's yet so cool about the visual of Spawn. The cape does whatever the hell the cape wants, or whatever the hell McFarlane wants the cape to do. So, but it is super noticeable in that panel.
And
Where
it is worth noting that one of McFarlane's favorite comic book covers for speculators is he actually draws an issue of Batman or Detective
Batman, yeah.
Comics with that famous Batman with Batman's cape, and so it is something that I actually think this artistic rendition of Spawn and his cape isn't as good as McFarlane will become. He gets better at drawing Spawn's cape in subsequent issues, but that's a very good observation you made there.
And again, he makes sure to tell us about it too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in this panel, but when we get
Yeah.
to the next page where Sam and Twitch have finally found out where Billy Kincaid is staying, they don't know that he's already kidnapped a girl and murdered her, and they're sitting outside, sort of staking him out the spot, and they do catch a glimpse of Spawn, and what Twitch says is, he sees a guy with a cape. He's like, they're like, what's going on? A cape. And so that spurs them to get out of the car. They go bursting into the house where Billy Kincaid is. Meanwhile, Spawn has already arrived there, and we're not really sure. We see Spawn, confronting Billy, but we don't actually get to see what happens. And when Sam and Twitch burst in, they're like, oh, something's wrong, but they find all the evidence that he's already killed a kid. So they head back to the police headquarters, and they're trying to figure out, like, did this caped freak do something? They want to do it by the book so Billy Kincaid doesn't get away with having killed another person. And so they go into their office, and it's that abrupt ending that Rocky was talking about. And we see Billy Kincaid all chained up with Spawn chains, and he's got popsicle sticks stabbed into him. He's got a ice cream scoop stabbed into him, and instead of talking about ice cream, it says boys scream and girls scream. So I made him scream and scream and scream. So he definitely got his revenge. It doesn't go so far as to say overtly that Billy Kincaid is dead, but
He doesn't look alive.
yeah, he very well, most likely is. His blood is dripping off of him, but we didn't see any of this. It's just we see Spawn break in and look at him, and then it switches to Sam and Twitch, and then we get this. So, it's not like Billy Kincaid was at all equipped to sort of be a physical match for Al Simmons, especially with his added powers. So, as much as the ending is sort of abrupt, I couldn't, play script doctor and say, well, the ending should have been this or should have been that. But what's interesting is it's like, okay, you gave Billy Kincaid as a motivation and a previous link to his previous life that got Al Simmons off the sidelines in his helter-skelter life, but he cleaned it up pretty quick. So now he could just go back to his helter-skelter life. He's, in McFarlane's own words, he's cleaned the blemish off now, right? So he can just go back to sleeping with the homeless guys.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I love this. I love this issue, and I remember it fondly because you don't see this type of writing much anymore. Nowadays, if a writer wrote this, we'd be subjected to another 6 issues following this. With Spawn on the trail of Billy Kincaid, and Billy Kincaid continuously getting away with it, and more buildup with Billy Kincaid's lawyers, and it would be all this extra drama and everything else. I love this because it's an abrupt ending. All this buildup, such a bad Billy Kincaid, and because he's eliminated and taken out so abruptly and basically off panel. I mean, just sort of hinted at. You don't really see it. You just like you don't. As a matter of fact, you almost just like you don't see the horror that Billy Kincaid inflicted on the young girl that he kidnaps early in the issue. You see the fingers on the finger painting, but you don't really see the horror that Billy inflicts. You're just told about it. You don't see the horror that Spawn inflicts on Billy Kincaid. You only see the after effects with the chains on that one visceral page at the end where Spawn's chains are wrapped around Billy Kincaid and the I scream, you scream. I mean, it's cliche, it's a little tropey, but you know what? At the time, this felt good. I mean, if you like vigilantes, if you're a Punisher fan, if you like bad guys getting their comeuppance, this was a feel good issue, man. I mean, this felt good, and it's a self-contained issue, and that's the other great thing about it. If you didn't know anything about Spawn and the first issue you picked up was issue 5, you're buying the previous 4 issues. I guarantee you that. I mean, that's just a fact, and you're definitely buying the next one. And this was my personal favorite of the ones we've reviewed so far, just because it brings back great memories for me.
Yeah, it's actually my least favorite. But like I said, it's not terrible. It's just the quirkiness of it. Like, why did the homeless guy have to get run over? Why did we have the homeless guy go on a rant? Like the over the top, being beaten over the head
Yeah.
with the fact that Billy's a bad guy. Like, okay, McFarlane, we get it.
Well, he's
But the
attacking
other,
the cops. He's making the cops look bad. I mean, McFarlane even makes the cop. The only good cops are Sam and Twitch. I mean, you got bad
yeah,
cops, you got bad guys, you got the whole system's corrupt. That's what he said about McFarlane. He's just not subtle. Everything, the whole system is a complete shithole.
well, and you know, again, you got to remember the time this was coming out in the '90s when everything was in comics was dark and gritty and really starting to lean into it at that point. You know, we're in the bad girl phase. Um, Punisher's super popular. Uh, you know, obviously Rob Liefeld and his ultra violent stuff, and moving over to creator owned with Image, where all these guys could put in a lot more blood and sort of cut loose, and yeah, they're still finding their way. And again, you wonder if they swung a little too far over to that side of things, making things dark and gritty and bloody because they could, right? Like it's just like you tell somebody they can't do something for so long, and then they have complete freedom. They may take it a little too far. Not that it's in poor taste, but they may not, without realizing it, take it a little too far just because they have the freedom to do so. But I do think it's cool that he references Shadowhawk. He's referenced Youngblood. We saw Savage Dragon make a cameo and
Yeah.
on the last couple pages of the previous issue. So yeah, I mean these guys were definitely trying to help each other out in terms of showing that it's a connected universe, and Image United was supposed to be a thing even though it never ultimately happened, and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean next issue I'm looking forward to. I remember issue number 6 being a favorite of mine because we're going to get introduced to another sort of nemesis for Spawn that hangs around for quite a while. So looking forward to that. But
Yeah.
any final thoughts on this issue, Rocky?
No, again, it, I'm back in 1992 enjoying this comic, and it brings back. I mean, Billy Kincaid, classic serial killer. I mean, if there was one dominant phrase that I have never forgotten and I attribute it to this issue, it's I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Whatever the actual nursery rhyme is, I don't know what it is. I just know it from this issue of Spawn. So it's as I say, it's kind of a morbid memory, and don't judge me, but I enjoyed this issue quite immensely.
Well, fair enough. Don't forget, everybody, that if you're checking us out on YouTube, go over to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to the audio podcast as well. Just do a search for the Comic Source on your favorite podcast app or podcast platform. We're on all of them: Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, all that. If you do listen to us just on audio, you owe it to yourself to go and check out the video stuff as well that comes out on the Comic Boom channel on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, do a search for Comic Space Boom exclamation point. Subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, give this video a like. All that stuff really helps out Rocky's channel and reach. So again, we'll wish everybody happy holidays. Hope you're enjoying your time counting down to Christmas and getting a chance to check out these episodes and kind of enjoy our Spawn miss here, the Spawn Renaissance that will continue into next year. So once again, we want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.